Hi everybody, welcome back to another week of the School Psychologist vlog. Thank you for the comments and the feedback from last week's video where we talked about technology. I know some of the students weren't pleased with some of the suggestions I had, but at the same time I think they understand the reasons for setting limits. They do appreciate those. So this week I'm going to give some insight to the parents. One of the things that I received feedback on, which also goes along with the mental health, is getting your kids to talk. One of the issues a lot of parents have is kid comes home from school and they don't talk to me. I don't know what's going on. How do I get them to talk to me? So we're going to talk a little bit about that because that's also an important piece when we have mental health is how do you share your story and how do you share your experiences and your feelings. Because ultimately all feelings are okay to have or are good to have. We want to have a variety of feelings. What we do have to be careful of is our actions. It's our actions that we need to limit, not those feelings. So before I start talking through this video and over the next few weeks, I wanted to give kind of the insight of where I got some of my information from. A lot of it's from my own experiences, different workshops as a CPI instructor. And, I took 15 weeks of how to listen to people. Hopefully, you won't need 15 weeks as a parent to listen to your child and getting them to talk, but it will take time. As an educator, one of the things that we have to do in a lot of professions is professional development. And there's only so many workshops I'd like to leave school for because unfortunately most of the workshops are during the school year. So I don't like to leave for too many workshops because it takes me out of the building, away from what I need to do. So there are other ways that you can get staff development hours, doing webinars, online classes, attending classes, but you can also do it by reading books and having a Kindle. Every once in a while I'll look on the free list and see what there is. And sometimes if it's work related, I'll say, oh, let's try this book and see how it is. And there was this one book that I kept hearing about, how to talk so kids will listen and listen so kids will talk. And this is by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish. I'm not even sure if I'm saying those right. But this book, I happened to get it free on my Kindle. And I read it, and it was really very insightful. Has some great examples. So you're like, how does this exactly work? So they'll put you through a dialogue of what it may look like between a parent and a child. And at first I thought this was going to be more for younger kids, but it really did give some example for some preteens and teens and older children as well. So a lot of the ideas are coming straight from this book too. Definitely something if you can get it for free. I enjoyed it so much I actually purchased it, but then somebody lost mine, which had all my tabs in it. But they were nice enough to buy me a nice new copy, so now I have to get my tabs back in there for my notes and whatnot. So it's kind of nice when you do that for free. Figure out if you like it or not. So how do you get your kids to talk? 2 words. Truth bomb to the parents. You need to stop talking. Easy enough. Stop talking. Too many times I will see adults when kids are elevated, when kids are upset, when kids are overwhelmed, people start talking to them. What's going on? What's happening? Why do you feel that way? And just a barrage of questions. Think about when you have a long day at work and you happen to come home and all of a sudden the kids are like, Mama this, Mama that, Daddy this, Daddy that, and your spouse is like, what's for dinner? Why isn't laundry done? Where's this outfit that I need for tomorrow? And you get just all these questions and you're like, stop. Give me 5 minutes to walk in the door and get my coat off, maybe even go to the bathroom. You yourself want that, and it's the same thing for our kids. We need to stop talking. They don't need to know everything that's going on. Silence is such a great and effective tool to use when you're trying to get somebody to talk. There are times when your presence alone is going to be comforting. If we think about those why questions, there's always going to be a why. Does the why really matter? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it absolutely does. But we want to be worried about those whys, and we don't always want to go to the whys, because sometimes your presence can be it. A kid may be struggling in a class, may be struggling with a peer. You may have something going on in your own household that is stressful and overwhelming for the both of you, whether it be a separation, maybe there's money issues, maybe there was a death of a pet or a family. Sometimes just being together is so powerful and can help a child feel so much better by not talking about it, but just knowing that you're there. In the counseling world, we call this unconditional positive regard. And we're really together in the same space, that no matter what you're thinking or feeling, it's accepted. Sometimes this part is hard for people as a whole, just not to talk. But then you're actively listening. That means you're not typing on the computer, you don't have your phone out, you're not cooking dinner, making sure that when your kid does talk, you are actively listening. As your child is sharing, sometimes they want to make sure that you're listening and responding. So sometimes giving those 1-word answers, 1 to 2-word answers, such as, oh, I see, oh, those types of things can definitely be helpful. Sometimes when your child is sharing something with you, they're just sharing on and on and on about the actual event. It's really helpful if you give the feeling a name. So, for example, your son or daughter comes home and the teacher was such a jerk, and and they gave us all this homework, and I don't know how I'm going to get all this homework done. I've got practice tonight, and the teacher gave us extra math problems, and you can say, that must be really frustrating to have all this homework plus all your other responsibilities. It could be overwhelming, whatever you use. That sounds frustrating, that sounds upsetting, that sounds overwhelming. Definitely can be very helpful. Parents are like, well, what if I use the wrong feeling? They'll correct you. They'll correct you. I was with a student earlier today, and we were kind of creating a plan, and I said, wow, that's pretty sad. And they're like, no, I'm angry. I'm mad about this. So sometimes acknowledging those feelings can be very helpful. So these are some beginning stages on how to get your kids to talk and listening. Do you always have to empathize? No. Like if your child said, hey, I've decided I'm going to go over so-and-so's house today, you don't have to be like, oh, that's very, you must feel so confident that you made a decision today. You're not always going to empathize with their feelings. Those why questions, as we said, adds to those problems. Do you always need to agree with their feelings? Absolutely not. And when you don't agree with their feelings, that can actually increase your child to think more critically about a problem. Going through a class that your child is having and they're upset. And they're kind of blaming the teacher, or they're blaming a coach, or whoever they happen to be, blaming the peer, and they're talking about how angry they are, and you can say, I understand that you're angry, but I also see another side to this story too. That it does help them to think critically. It's probably not your first step that you want to go with. But as you go through this and get your kid to talk more, that's definitely another step that you can have. Using a couple cautions, using the I understand how you feel is really not helpful. They feel belittled by that statement. If you think about yourself, if you go into your boss or you go into your spouse and you are upset about something and they say, oh, I understand how you feel. Do they really understand how you feel? Because first of all, that may make them upset or sad, whereas you're furious about it. That's why using that give the feeling a name identifies it back onto your child, helps them identify actually what they're feeling or what they're showing and experiencing. You don't want to just repeat back. So when your child says, I'm so angry, oh, you're angry, I hear you're angry. That's just going to increase frustration for them. You also want to be careful of your tone. A lot of times as adults with parents, with each other, sometimes we feel sarcasm can work, and you definitely have to know your child, but you also have to know when to turn that off. Um, as a parent, I also want to caution you about responding more intensely than what your child is responding. A lot of times, kids have very powerful emotions just developmentally as it is, not realizing how powerful and intense their emotions really are at the time. So when they feel that the problem is a glitch or a small problem, and then you are yelling and screaming and exploding, then all of a sudden they're realizing that this little problem, they're starting to second guess themselves, that this is a much bigger problem that's created, or that they've upset you. So they don't want to share. They begin to shut down. They don't want to share. Well, when they see you kind of respond this way, this is a way to get mom to respond to get what I want. And so then they move on that way. So, kind of keeping that calm, neutral tone, being present with your child can definitely help them begin to talk to you more. So a bit of a homework assignment, talk less. It definitely helps with decreasing anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. My second suggestion and homework assignment for you this week is when you see your child after a long day, I don't want you to give them a whole bunch of questions. I don't want you to ask them how their day was. What did you do in school? What did you do in this class? What did you do in that class? Do you have homework? I don't want you to ask any questions of your child. Instead, I simply want you to say, it's good to see you. Try that with your spouse. Try that with your friends. It's good to see you are very powerful words. Think of a good friend or family member that you haven't seen in a very long time and you see each other. What's the first thing you say to each other? It's so good to see you. And ultimately, it is good to see these people if we're seeking them out and want to see them. Try that with your child. Start with a very simple statement when you see them. It's good to see you. Be quiet. No more talking after that. So that's kind of the work that I have for you. I won't be doing another vlog. Next week is Thanksgiving. So I wanted to wish all of you and your families a very wonderful Thanksgiving break. And there's a lot to think about and a lot to try out over the next 2 weeks with your kids. And for those students who have watched this video, I challenge you to attempt the same things and the same homework skills that I've given to your parents. I want you to try it with your parents and each other as well, because ultimately we are all on the same team. So thank you so much for watching. Again, have a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks.